Hello students, in this Math Weekly, number 18, our focus skill is going to be perimeter and circumference. Before we begin looking at some problems, let's talk about our important vocabulary words. The first important vocabulary word is perimeter. Perimeter is the distance around the outside of a polygon. A polygon is a straight-sided figure. To calculate the perimeter, you add up all the sides around the outside. For circumference, circumference is the distance around the outside of a circle. To calculate circumference, use one of the following formulas depending on which piece of information you know. Circumference is equal to pi, which is 3.14, times the diameter, or circumference is equal to 2 times pi times the radius. And these are equivalent because we know it takes 2 radii to make 1 diameter. So let's begin practicing perimeter. Let's calculate the perimeter of the shape below. Now notice we're given 4 numbers, but those 4 numbers do not represent the entire way around the figure. We also need to figure out how long this side is here. So we need to put a number here, and we need to figure out how long this side is here. Now take a look at this segment plus this segment. Together, they make the same length as this other side. So if this side is 10, then this distance from top to bottom would be 10. So if this is 4, then this has to be 6 centimeters so that when you add them together, it's 10 centimeters. Similarly, the bottom is 5 centimeters. This is 3 centimeters. 5 take away 3 is 2 centimeters. So we need to add those all up. 10 plus 3 makes 13. Do you see how I'm going around the shape? So far I have gone this side and this side, 10 plus 3. Now I'm going to add 6 more and then 2 more. So let's do that. Add 6 more, which is 19, plus 2 more, which is 21. And now I'm going to go the remainder of the sides, adding 4 and 5 onto what I have. So add 4 is 25, and add 5 more, that makes 30. So the perimeter is 30 centimeters. One thing that you need to be careful with, sometimes they'll put a dotted line across here, even a solid line, and label it 3 centimeters in this case. Make sure that you do not include numbers that represent lengths in the center of your figure with the perimeter. Even though those numbers are there, they represent extra information when calculating perimeter. So let's practice calculating circumference. We're going to calculate the circumference of the figures below. Now I've only put 1 there so far, and you'll see why in a minute. In this figure, we're given the diameter. The diameter is 8 yards. Remember, circumference is equal to pi times the diameter. So pi is 3.14 and the diameter is 8. So if I calculate 3.14 times 8, that will tell me the distance around the entire circle. So the distance around the entire circle is 25.12 yards. 25 whole yards and 12 hundredths of a yard. Now let's say that we are not looking at a whole circle. Let's say we're looking at half of a circle. What are we going to do to figure out the distance around half of the circle, which would include from here to here, not the length in the middle, just here to here? So if we were looking for the circumference of this shape, we would need to take our circumference of the whole circle, which we did by pi times diameter, and divide it by 2. So we take that 21.12, divide it by 2, and that's 12.56 yards. That's the distance around the half circle. If we also wanted to know the perimeter entirely, the arc plus the segment, we would need to add 8 onto that to get 20.56 yards. Let's do one more example that will have a combination of perimeter and circumference. When a combination occurs, it is just called perimeter, but you need to be thinking circumference when you see the rounded edge here. So since this is a rounded edge, I personally like to start with the circumference. So I'm going to work on the arc. Okay, my goal is to figure out how far it is around this portion of the arc. To do so, I have to know this diameter, which happens to be across from this side of the rectangle. So this diameter is 6 centimeters. So the circumference of this half circle is going to be pi times the diameter, but that's a whole circle. So then when I'm finished, I'll have to divide it by 2. So the circumference is pi, which is 3.14, times the diameter, which is 6, and then I'll have to divide that by 2. So I'm going to do 3.14 times it by 6, and then divide my answer by 2. So the circumference of that semicircle is 9.42 centimeters. Now that is not the entire perimeter. The perimeter does not consist of only that arc, that's part of it. So I'm going to write that arc down, 9.42, but I'm also going to have to add 18 more, plus 6 more, plus 18 more for the bottom. Notice 18 is like 18.00, 6 is 6.00, and 18.00. So I get 2, 4, that makes 17, and this makes 14. 17 plus 14 makes 31, so I write down the 1, carry the 3, 3 plus 1 is 4, plus 1 more is 5. So the perimeter is 51.42 centimeters. Let's now summarize what we've learned in Math Weekly 18 about perimeter and circumference. To calculate perimeter, add up all the side lengths. To calculate circumference, use pi times the diameter or 2 times pi times the diameter. For the circumference of a half circle, divide the circumference by 2. Sometimes perimeter refers to a combination of perimeter and circumference.